Hello guys, welcome back to Anime Moments. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Against the Gods based on novel. So let's start explanation. Along the way, Yoon-chae was still constantly thinking of various ways to tease Xie Qingyu and even pondered about whether or not he should shamelessly pester her to sleep together with him here. But after he entered the ice pavilion where Chu Yu-chen used to reside, all of his thoughts and intentions seemed to have been sealed by the desolateness here, as he stared blankly for a long while in despondency. The arrangement here was very simple. There was only one bed, one table, and one mirror. The bed was constructed from cold jade, without any bedding above it. When felt, there was only toughness and a bone-piercing coldness. The air here was very quiet, and very cold. Even though Chu Yu-chen had already left for 2 years, he still could faintly smell that snow lotus-like scent of hers. Little fairy, had she always lived in a place like this? Yoon-chae spoke in a murmur. Senior Master had lived here since childhood. In these several tens of years, there has been no change to this place at all. The living space of Master, Junior, and Senior Masters, as well as sisters of the same sect, are also all roughly like this. Xie Qingyu said. Just living in this kind of place, won't you guys feel vexed and bored? Yoon-chae spoke with a complicated expression as he turned around. Even though the ice pavilion was big, everything could be distinctly seen at one glance. No, Xie Qingyu shook her head. If used to it, then one wouldn't feel any vexation. Moreover, this kind of environment is most fitting for us frozen cloud disciples. It can allow us to cultivate with a heart like still water with no other distractions. Phew. I really can't understand frozen cloud Asgard's women. Yoon-chae said with some resentful indignation. Every single one are outstanding beauties. What kind of man can't they find? With the protection of a powerful man, it's more than enough to not have any worries for life, yet why stubbornly suffer such hardships and fight at all costs like this? Moreover, to have wasted so much resources like beautiful women. That last sentence was actually what Yoon-chae wanted to shout out a long time ago. Frozen Asgard's sisters, they either had formerly been destitute and lonely without anyone to depend on, or they wished to pursue the way of the profound. For sisters who had formerly been drifting and uncared for, this is a secure home, and they will no longer be oppressed and bullied by others. For sisters who pursue the way of the profound, this place is also the most fitting place for them. So, to us, this cannot be considered as suffering hardships. Xie Qingyu said with a gentle and slow voice. She herself clearly belonged to the latter. Many women are willing to become a man's vassal. If they are able to find the right person to depend on, they indeed can enjoy a lifetime of safety, or even glory. Yet most women who are only dependent without any ego, are ill-fated and unfortunate. Even more so, for some women, if they did not possess enough strength, they cannot even mutually meet and hold their husband and children. As she spoke till here, Xie Qingyu's voice suddenly trembled for a split second, but returned to normal right away. The outside world frequently says that not only does Frozen Cloud Asgard have extremely high aptitude requirements for newly entering disciples, but also similarly have extremely high requirements for appearance, which was why Frozen Cloud's women are all beauties that could ruin cities. In actuality, these are only their arbitrary conjecture. Xie Qingyu said slowly, Frozen Cloud Asgard's requirement toward disciples are only aptitude, and never had any requirements for appearance. Merely, not only can frozen cloud art congeal the profound into ice, it can also refine the body and features, making the cultivator's skin like ice jade and soft resin. Their features would be comparable to flawless snow lotuses, and their bodies would naturally emit a cool and elegant presence of ice and snow as well. All of the sisters had cultivated frozen cloud arts from childhood. When grown up, naturally they would all be dazzling beauties that makes the fish sink and geese fall. But also because of this, it is extremely likely for men to cast their covetous gaze upon us. As such, our Frozen Cloud Asgard's women would never slack in cultivation, thus making Frozen Cloud Asgard's strength situate at the pinnacle of blue wind since long ago. Otherwise, a sect with all good-looking women definitely couldn't safely stand for 1,000 years. Xie Qingyu's words made Yoon-chae subconsciously reach out his hand, and felt his own face. This action of his made the corner of Xie Qingyu's lips slightly move, as she instantly went speechless. Looking at that cold jade bed, Yoon-chae became absent-minded for a while, Perhaps, for the Frozen Clouds women, everything here was already the usual habit. However, as long as it was a normal man, no one would be willing to see their woman live in such an ice-cold place for a long time and suffer hardship. During those 5 months he lived together with Chu Yuqian, though her entire body was paralyzed, at least, his embrace was much softer than this bed of ice, at least, he could narrate various interesting news and stories for her every day, and it wasn't as ice-cold and lonesome like this place. They were only used to it, however, there wouldn't really be women liking this kind of life. In there, they might adapt and get used to it, perhaps might also be laden with grief and feel joy, but it would simply be impossible to have a sense of being blessed. Because something like being blessed comes from the loving care of parents and family, as well as being cherished by their fated man. Chu Yuqian left Frozen Cloud Asgard, and even dispersed the frozen cloud art she had cultivated for several dozen of years. But in her heart, she felt she was sorrowful, yet was also fortunate. Because she had met Yunche, in that short 5 months of time, she, for the first time in her entire life, truly felt that she was a woman. Once a frozen heart catches the mundane, the mark imprinted would be tens or hundreds of times deeper than ordinary women. Therefore, she would be so resolute for Yunche, even not sparing to desert the frozen cloud Asgard that filled her previous dozens years of life. Just speaking from this aspect, the fates of Frozen Cloud's women indeed were somewhat sorrowful. Though they themselves don't think so. Especially since they could not marry, could not fall in love, and even could not intimately come into contact with men. Which made Yunche especially indignated. It wasn't merely wasting resources, it was wasting resources of the highest, greatest, and best quality. How many women of unrivaled beauty had there been during these 1,000 years in Frozen Cloud Asgard? To actually have all spent their last years with a frozen heart just like that. Wasting resources was disgraceful. Especially to men, this kind of squandering was more so absolutely, definitely, and most certainly unforgivable. As he kept on thinking, a grand aspiration suddenly began to burn within Yunche's heart. As the first male disciple throughout the history of Frozen Cloud Asgard. Don't you think that I should take up the almightily important duty of saving the fellow disciples and boycott wasting? The moment this idea appeared, the blood in Yunche's entire body nearly boiled instantaneously. Even though the responsibility was extremely great, and the pressure was even greater, as a man, especially the first man to infiltrate the Frozen Cloud Asgard, if he didn't shoulder the burden, he simply wouldn't be able to face his identity as a man. What are you thinking? Seeing Yunche's gaze suddenly gleam bright and his mouth even carried a hint of smile that seemed somewhat dangerous, Xie Qingyu instantly asked with some vigilance. Oh, nothing much, I only thought of an very important matter. Even though important, there is still quite a lot of time, and it isn't too urgent either. Yunche curbed his expression right away while replying with a tranquil face. Xie Qingyu's charming eyes fixed onto his face for a little while with slight suspicion, and suddenly asked, "The masters say that you have conjured frozen and divine arts earlier. I hadn't thought that comprehending the frozen and divine arts would actually only take you as short as a day. Right now, what stage have you reached?" Yunche extended his hand, and atop his palm, a small-sized tree of frozen end quickly grew, barely reached the realm of the 4th stage, tree of frozen end. The first 3 stages are all laying the foundations, and the cultivation after the 3rd stage would be somewhat difficult. For me to perfect the 4th stage, I would need at least 5 or 6 days. Seeing that tree of frozen end within Yunche's hands, even though Xie Qingyu had been prepared, her gaze still trembled with extreme severity. She spoke almost in a whisper, didn't expect that the Xiaoche with crippled profound veins who was ridiculed by everyone and made one feel pity, actually had such an innate aptitude. Aren't you the same? Yunche said as he faintly smiled. Who would have thought that a merchant's daughter of the tiny floating cloud city would actually thwart the publicly accepted #1 of the younger generation, more so becoming the first throne of the younger generation in the history of Blue Wind, and is now even selected as the young Asgard mistress of Frozen Cloud Asgard. Yunche and Xie Qingyu were undoubtedly the most excellent 2 of Blue Wind Empire's younger generation, so much so that no more than a few of the older generation could triumph over them. But they both hailed from Floating Cloud City, the smallest city within Blue Wind Empire, which was even forgotten by most people. They were even a pair of husband and wife with a complicated bond. At this moment, they simultaneously thought of the miraculousness of fate. As they looked at each other without words, the same tidal surge of emotions undulated within their hearts. Finally, Yunche broke through the silence that suddenly came, and said in deadly earnest, "Qingyu, my wife, you haven't answered me yet. Roughly how much longer will it take for you to cultivate frozen and divine arts to total perfection?" Xie Qingyu turned around as a wave of cold wind swept up. Before Yunche could even speak, her entire graceful figure had already turned into an afterimage. Her voice also slowly came from outside the window. "A little later, Senior Master Qin Xue will personally come bring the snow heart pellets and frozen cicada liquid jade to you. After consuming them, they can strengthen your profound strength and ice attribute profound arts. Rest early." "Hey, I haven't." Under frozen snow dance steps, Xie Qingyu had already left his perception range within a few breaths of time. Yunche could only moodily retract his subconscious steps that wanted go chase. Not long after, Murong Qinxue sure enough brought over the snow heart pellets and frozen cicada liquid jade, but she didn't say a single word to Yunche, and left coldly just like that. Facing this cold beauty whose temper was somewhat close to Chu Yuqian, Yunche naturally also didn't dare to tease. The curtains of the night became darker and darker, yet as Yunche laid atop the cold jade bed Chu Yuqian had slept on since childhood, he couldn't fall asleep for a long time. He did not fear the coldness, but the cold jade bed was too hard, he couldn't get used to it. His sea of consciousness were more so filled with Chu Yuqian's silhouette. "Little fairy, where exactly are you? Do you still not know that I have not died? Moreover, I am at the place you lived for several dozens of years, sleeping atop the bed you've slept on before. Are you living in seclusion in a place that won't be bothered by anyone? Are you, and our child well? When you needed me the most, I wasn't by your side. You gave birth to our child, yet I couldn't watch his birth, and couldn't watch him grow as a baby together with you. Everything you had to shoulder by yourself. Would he be a boy or a girl? If he was a boy, would he look like me? If she was a girl, she would definitely be as beautiful as you." Time had already gradually neared the early morning, yet Yunche still had not fallen asleep. He decided to simply sit up from the cold jade bed. Swallowing the snow heart pellets and the frozen cicada liquid jade in one breath, he then closed his eyes to enter meditation, slowly processing the cold energy within. The snow heart pellets and frozen cicada liquid jade were almost the highest grade of miraculous medicine within frozen cloudless guard. If it was someone else of the same cultivation, doing this was basically equal to suicide. But Yunche's body could even process an emperor profound beast's flesh and blood with ease. The snow heart pellets and frozen cicada liquid jade were simply nothing but a cinch. The second day Yunche entered frozen cloudless guard. During the main hall sectoral assembly, Gong Yuxian officially declared that Yunche had become a disciple of frozen cloudless guard. At that time, the feeling of standing within a great number of flowers, and being simultaneously gazed at by so many absolutely gorgeous women, Yunche probably wouldn't forget it his entire life. On that day, he helped Mu Lanyi and Chu Yueli open all their profound entrances. Even though this was a great matter that shook the heavens and earth to frozen cloudless guard, to Yunche, however, it was just, and honorably taking an advantage as great as the heavens with extremely little effort. This feeling simply couldn't be any better. For the rest of the time, he stayed within the frozen cloud divine hall, and continually comprehended frozen end divine arts. As his frozen end divine arts progressed, his profound strength cultivation was also silently growing. In the fourth stage realm of the frozen end divine arts, the tree of frozen end contained plenty of changes. It could defend and attack, seal and contain, and was ever-changing. Even if Yunche's ability to comprehend was high and also possessed the seed of the evil god, this would not be something that he would be able to comprehend in a short period of time. Why are you interested in frozen end divine arts? In terms of strength, it definitely pales in comparison to the phoenix flame and the heavy sword. Instead, it would cause you to lose focus and waste concentration and time. As Yunche stared at the profound formula for the frozen end divine arts, Jasmine asked rather abruptly. "This is different." Yunche casually said, "The reason the divine phoenix sect is the strongest sect within profound sky is because of the phoenix flame. Also, The same level of frozen and divine arts is able to freeze even the phoenix flame, which means that within profound sky continent it is a top-level profound art. That is also the truth. Although its destructive ability pales in comparison to the phoenix's flame, ice-type profound arts usually specialize in defense and sealing. This is something the strength of the phoenix and the heavy sword is unable to do. At many times, there would undoubtedly be a day where it will be of much use. Yun-Che narrowed his eyes and muttered, "In 4 months' time, I will be going to the Divine Phoenix Empire. If nothing goes wrong, I would likely be engaged in a battle with people from the Divine Phoenix sect. And the ice attribute is the bane of fire. I am not afraid of fire, and since the nature of my profound skills can also counter it, the chances of me coming back alive would increase largely. HMPH, looks like you also know how dangerous the Divine Phoenix sect is." "There's no choice," Yun-Che said helplessly. "Even though I know that there's no way to avoid this, I never expected people from the Divine Phoenix sect to come so fast. If not for the Profound Sky 7 Nation ranking tournament and the Primordial Profound Arc, I wouldn't even have this few months of preparation time and grace period. Now I can only do my best to find ways and means to increase my chances of survival. Then, when I arrive at the Divine Phoenix Empire, I shall act accordingly." "Someone's here." Just as Jasmine had finished speaking, a light noise came from behind him. Then, the doors to the Frozen End Divine Hall opened silently. 2 young and pure beauties stood there, as though they appeared from within drawings. Their petite faces were identical and written on them were expectations and excitement. And also a little bit of nervousness. The 6th and 7th ranked of the Frozen Cloud 7 fairies were these twin sisters, Feng Hanyu and Feng Hanxue. At the same time, aside from Xia Qingyu, they were also the youngest of the 7 fairies. It was impossible to know their actual age, but they looked like they were 2 young girls only of 17 or 18. The Frozen Cloud 7 fairies were all as cold and proud as lotuses, especially Chu Yuqian, who was coldest of them all. However, this pair of twins were the opposite. At least, when Yun-Che first saw them, he did not think of them as cool and elegant, but instead thought of them as sweet and pretty. Compared to the other Frozen Cloud disciples who were always wearing an icy exterior, their jade-like lips were always upturned and their crescent-like brows would dance unknowingly. Even their eyes were smart and tactful. Rather than saying they looked like frozen fairies, they were more like a pair of pure, untouched elves that were brought up in the snow. In Frozen Cloud Asgard, a place where every corner is cold and lonely, the appearance of such an anomaly was not without reason. Normal Frozen Cloud disciples stayed alone in their individual ice pavilions, devoting their sole concentrations to practice. However, this pair of twins stayed together in one room. They usually stuck together like pieces of gum, went everywhere together, did everything together, and hence never felt lonely. Every day, they never lacked anyone to talk to and were more cheerful and happy than other Frozen Cloud disciples. Therefore, their attitude and temperaments were different from other Frozen Cloud disciples. Facing Murong Qianxue, Zhang Lianxie, Mu Lanyi, and the others, Yun-Che still would feel some form of invisible pressure. Although he was taking advantage of them openly, when the opportunity arose, he did not dare to perform any other further actions on them. However, when facing siblings Feng Hanyu and Feng Hanxue, Yun-Che's heart did not have any bit of pressure. He turned around and smiled cheekily at this pair of elf-like girls, "My 2 senior sisters, I've been waiting for some time already. Quickly, come in." "Eh? Senior sister?" Feng Hanyu blinked in bewilderment. "No, it's Junior Master." Feng Hanxue corrected immediately, "You cannot call us Senior Sister, you must call us Junior Master instead." "Eh? Junior Master?" Yun-Che had a face of shock. "You two obviously look younger than me. Calling you Senior Sister is already awkward. How can I call you two Junior Master? Although we look to be very young, we are actually older than you." "Much older than you?" Feng Hanyu pouted as she spoke. Most girls like to play down their age, but when Feng Hanyu said that she was older than Yun-Che, she spoke with elation and glee. "Qingyu calls us Junior Master, and you, being her husband, should call us the same way as she does," Feng Hanxue explained seriously. But my wife Qingyu is also among the frozen cloud 7 fairies with you too, and she's also the leader of the 7 fairies. Yunche said slowly, if that's the case, Qingyu is already the same seniority as you two. Therefore, it should be correct for me to call you two senior sister. What you say does make sense. No. Anyways, Qingyu still calls us junior master, and you just entered the sect. You should call us junior master. Oh, alright. Yunche nodded honestly. Before I open the profound entrances for my two senior sisters, I'd have to trouble senior sisters to close the stone door. It's best that we do not get interrupted during the process of opening the profound entrances. Alright. And you called us wrongly. It's junior master. You cannot call us senior sister. Oh? Yes, I called wrongly just now. Which senior sister is going first? Yunche asked with wide innocent eyes. It's junior master, junior master, junior master, junior master. The Shuiyu sisters grew crazy. Yes. So, is senior sister Hanyu going first? Tilde. #1%. Feng Hanyu sat in front of Yunche and removed her snowy clothes, revealing her jade-white back. Her eyes shut tightly as her eyelashes danced around nervously. Beside her, Feng Hanyu blinked her beautiful eyes continuously as she looked at Yunche's actions and her sister's reactions with curiosity and nervousness. She frowned sometimes, pouted sometimes, and tilted her head sometimes. It was like she was a curious cat looking at something new. Yunche looked very concentrated, and he started groping around Feng Hanyu's back. 20-odd profound entrances opened one after another. Suddenly, Feng Hanyu, who was trying her best to remain silent, stiffened her snowy body and could not control her laughter. Oh? Sis, what's wrong? Feng Hanyu asked frantically. His touch is making it very ticklish. But you still cannot make any noise and must not move around. Otherwise, if something goes wrong, it would be disastrous. Feng Hanyu reminded her worryingly. I know. Feng Hanyu stuck her tongue out and replied without any worries, but never mind, 53 of my profound entrances have already been open. Just one more and they would all be completely opened. Therefore, even if I acted like this now, it would not matter anymore. Oh, then it's fine. Feng Hanyu looked like she had become nervous. Yunche frowned as he wiped the trace of a smile off his face. Just as he was about to open Feng Hanyu's last profound entrance, his hand suddenly left her back, and he slowly put it down. The expression on his face also turned grim and serious. Just as Feng Hanyu was happily expecting the arrival of the heavenly god's spiritual veins, she suddenly felt Yunche's hand leave her back. He never did this when he was opening the profound entrances of Murong Qianxue, Jun Lianxie, and the other senior sisters. She hurried asked, Wait. There's only 53 open, there's still the Jade Pool entrance left. You couldn't have forgotten, right? I know, but... Yunche revealed a face of helplessness as he hesitated for some time before muttering, Senior Hanyu, your Jade Pool entrance. There seems to be some problem. Yunche words caused Feng Hanyu and Feng Hanyu to cry out in surprise at the same time. In the midst of her shock and worry, Feng Hanyu nearly turned around. She then clutched her snowy clothes tighter to her chest before turning her body over. At this time, she did not care whether Yunche called her senior sister or grand mistress as she asked frantically, Is that true? What's wrong with my Jade Pool entrance? Is it serious? Don't tell me that it can't be opened. Yes, just what is the problem? Why is there such problem? Is it serious? Feng Hanyu and Feng Hanyu asked a string of questions, and it looked as though Feng Hanyu was even more frantic than Feng Hanyu. This, Yunche breathed out lightly before eventually saying, Senior sisters, don't be too worried. Senior sister Hanyu's problem is neither an external or an internal injury. It's just a naturally born inverse concealment. Inverse concealment? Feng Hanyu and Feng Hanyu asked at the same time. They looked confused, as this was the first time they have heard such a phrase. It was no wonder, since this phrase was something that Yun-Che had made up. Cough cough, inverse concealment is one of our medical terminology. It's normal that you two do not know about it. Yun-Che said with a straight face, profound entrances being inversely concealed are actually very common. It refers to a certain profound entrance self-concealing itself within the profound veins, and it also grows at the inverse location. Strictly speaking, it's not considered a defect in the profound entrance because it does not affect one's training. It acts like any normal profound entrance and cannot be opened from within using hard work. However, for an inversely concealed profound entrance to be opened externally, it is much more difficult, even though the method used is the same. Furthermore, it's not possible for it to be opened from the back. Hearing Yun-Che say this, the two sisters heaved a sigh of relief. Yun-Che said that it would be more difficult, but did not say it was not possible. Feng Hanxue asked carefully, if you cannot open from the back, how can you do it? This, Yun-Che revealed a face of helplessness. He hesitated for some time before replying softly, if I say it, you two cannot be angry. Senior sisters, you must know the position of the jade pool entrance, right? It lies just at the position of the right chest. If the profound entrance was normal, it would be opened from the right back. But due to it being inversely concealed, it can only be opened from the inverse, which is the front, which also is the position of senior sister Hanyu's right chest. This, I know that senior sister would definitely not be willing, therefore, I can only do so much. Without any anticipation, when they heard Yun-Che's words, the Shuiyu sisters screamed out in shock. They seemed like a cat whose tail has been stepped on. BB British English? Breast? Feng Hanyu instinctively held her snow clothes closer to her chest as she stammered. If you were to open her jade pool entrance, you would have to place your hand, the same way you put it on her back, on her chest. Feng Hanxue stared widely and said. Yun-Che nodded innocently. How can this be? The Shuiyu sisters cried out in alarm. The two young girls screamed even louder with decibels high enough to make Yun-Che shrink uncontrollably as he frantically added on, I know you two senior sisters are all pure and noble and would definitely not allow something like this to happen. Therefore, I don't know what to do either. You wouldn't be saying that in order to try and take advantage of Big Sis, right? Feng Hanxue watched Yun-Che as she hit the truth immediately. Feng Hanxue's words somehow seemed to remind Feng Hanyu, that's right. Are you doing this on purpose? You peeped at us bathing the other night. You must be the big pervert that Senior Qianxue and Senior Lianxie mentioned before. #1%, the edges of Yun-Che's mouth twitched as he replied with grief and indignation, I have already explained numerous times that I didn't do it on purpose that night. Qingyu even stood up for me that day. Even if you don't believe me, you must believe my wife Qingyu. The most crucial thing is that I'm handsome, charming, upright and is also an unparalleled genius. Even your grandest guard mistress broke your 1,000-year-old rule and accepted me as a disciple of Frozen Cloud Asgard. How can a person like this be the big pervert that you mentioned? Yun-Che's sad and indignant expression and speech caused the two sisters to be shocked. From what he said, they felt as though they had wronged him. Feng Hanyu grabbed her snowy clothes tight against her chest, and said softly, You really aren't lying in order to take advantage of us. Yun-Che looked serious and replied sternly, if you don't believe that the jade pool entrance is inversely concealed, you could always go out to seek the advice from an experienced medical person. Whatever they say would be without a doubt the same as mine. But we sisters have never left Frozen Cloud Asgard before, and we do not know of any experienced medical person. Feng Hanyu weakly replied. Eh? You have never left the Frozen Cloud Asgard before? Hearing that, Yun-Che revealed a face of shock. They were all highly ranked, the extremely famous Frozen Cloud 7 fairies, yet they had never left Frozen Cloud Asgard before? That's right. Because Asgard Mistress says that we will easily cause trouble and even affect the reputation of Frozen Cloud Asgard if we go out, Fen Hanshua's voice turned sad. Sister and I has always listened obediently to Asgard mistress and have always been in good terms with the other sisters and disciples. However, the other sisters are able to go out, only we are prohibited from doing so. Mistress is so biased. Yunche could understand fully well why Gong Yuxian did not allow this pair of siblings to go to the outside world. The reason was simple. The ladies of the frozen cloud Asgard always gave off an icy cool arrogance and seemed so distant, especially their cold stare which could almost freeze one's heart. But although Feng Hanyu and Fen Hanchue also practiced the same frozen cloud arts, their personality and temperament was completely unrelated to icy proudness. Furthermore, they were a part of the frozen cloud 7 fairies. If they were to interact with people from the outside world and revealed their actual personalities, it would undoubtedly distort people's impression of the frozen cloud Asgard. Actually, Asgard mistress refusing to let you two go out is not due to bias. Instead, it is to show her love and care for you. Yunche replied in all seriousness, in the outside world, there are all sorts of dangers you two cannot imagine. There are especially many big perverts that you guys mention. Within frozen cloud Asgard, you two senior sisters are not only the prettiest, but also the most lovable. Look at me, though I have only known you two for 3 days, whenever I see you two, my heart would feel happy immediately. Asgard mistress must like you two the most, and therefore is worried of your safety. She feels that it is unsafe to let you two leave the frozen cloud Asgard. Liking compliments is the nature of humans, especially women. It was their most fundamental nature. Yunche's few words got the two sisters over cloud 9 as they replied happily, "Is what you said really true?" "Of course it's true." Yunche nodded seriously before continuing, "If I really were the big pervert that you speak of, senior sister Qianxue, senior sister Lianxie, senior sister Lani, senior sister Yueli, I would have already taken advantage of all of them. However, they all managed to successfully open all profound entrances. You two are so lovable that I cannot possibly think of bullying. If you really still don't believe me, there's nothing I can do as well." As Yunche spoke, he quickly revealed a hurt expression. No. We're not completely suspecting you, but you, what shall we do? There's only the Jade Pool entrance left. All the other senior sisters have already completely opened their profound entrances and obtained the heavenly god's spiritual veins, but I? Feng Hanxue bit her lips and asked hesitantly, "Yunche, my sister has already opened 53 out of 54 profound entrances, and is only missing the Jade Pool entrance. If we skip that one, there shouldn't be a huge difference, right?" Yunche's gaze was clear as he shook his head seriously. If it were comparing between 52 open profound entrances and 53 open profound entrances, the difference would be very little. However, the difference between 53 open profound entrances and 54 open profound entrances would be like heaven and earth. Because when all 54 profound entrances are opened, one attains the heavenly god's spiritual veins. If one is missing, it wouldn't be the heavenly god's spiritual veins anymore. The reason the heavenly god's spiritual veins are called heavenly god's spiritual veins is because when all the profound entrances are opened, the flow, gathering, and release of profound energy reaches a higher level where the world seems to run on different laws. This allows the profound veins to ascend from the stage of being human to a completely new level. One profound entrance, when comparing the difference, would be the same logic as when talking about profound realms. The 9th and 10th level of the Sky Profound Realm are not that much different, but the 10th level of the Sky Profound Realm and the 1st level of the Emperor Profound Realm would be like the difference between the clouds and mud. Senior Sister Hanyu already opened 53 profound entrances, and the strength of her profound veins have nearly been increased by 2-fold. However, compared to the other senior sisters who had already obtained the heavenly god's spiritual veins, the speed of cultivating of profound strength, channeling speed, and speed of gathering profound energy would be only around 50%. 50%? Yunche's words caused the two sisters to be petrified for a moment, especially when he mentioned Murong Qianxue and the others who were also with them among the frozen Cloud 7 fairies. Hearing the list of these huge disadvantages between her and the others, Feng Hanyu nearly broke down crying on the spot. As fellow disciples, and together among the frozen Cloud 7 fairies, they originally had the same potential and grew up together. But now, because of one jade pool entrance, she had such a big disadvantage. How could her pure and competitive heart take this? Shua, what should I do? If it's like this, I would be left behind by our senior sisters and the gap would keep increasing. Feng Hanyu helplessly asked. No worries, wait until I have the heavenly god's spiritual veins. I will put in your effort as well. This way, if we work together, we would prevent our senior sisters from pulling the gap away from us. Feng Hanyu heart-achingly consoled her. Her pure words of encouragement did not console her at all, and instead caused Feng Hanyu to suddenly feel even more helpless. Because not only her senior sisters, even her younger sister would also attain the heavenly god's spiritual veins. Not only would her senior sisters widen their gap from her younger sister would as well. No. I can't let them widen the gap from me. Just one more step, and I would be able to the same as the senior sisters. This cannot happen. Feng Hanyu turned her head and looked at Yunche, asking pitifully, Yunche, is there really no other way open the jade pool entrance? Yunche replied guiltily, if there were, I would use all my abilities to do it and risk it all to do it for senior Hanyu. However, the position of the jade pool entrance is too unique. There really is no other way. Feng Hanyu did not say any more, as her pearl-like teeth bit on her lips, slowly biting harder and harder. After a while, she had finally made the most difficult decision of her life. She replied with a face full of grievance, If I let you help me open my jade pool entrance, can it be done with clothes? Oh? Sis, you really want to? Feng Hanyu hid her face within the snowy clothes and meekly grumbled, just a bit more and I would be able to attain the heavenly god's spiritual veins. If I don't open my jade pool entrance, I might not even be able to stay within the frozen fairies with Shue after some time. Furthermore, he has already seen it all that day. Also, in comparison to the heavenly god's spiritual veins, all these do not matter. This, Yunche carefully selected his words, Senior Sister Hanyu, you sure you want to this? It's just that if it's done with clothes on, it carries along a huge risk. Furthermore, there is a possibility that the entire jade pool entrance collapses and gets destroyed. Then, close your eyes. I can't see if I close my eyes, what if something goes wrong? Tilda. Yuan %%. I don't care. Feng Hanyu, who had always been facing Yunche with her back, suddenly turned around. Even though her snowy clothes were still bunched up against her chest, the curve of her snow-white charming shoulders was still beautiful beyond compare. Her beautiful eyes stared at Yunche with a piercing look. An extremely clear resolution was within her death-defying expression. If we open the jade pool entrance like this, how long would it take? 3 minutes. So long. That. After you help me open the jade pool entrance, you must not tell anyone else of today's matter. You must not tell anybody. Not even Qingyu. You can't tell anyone. Yunche nodded like a chick pecking at rice. Of course, this matter concerns senior sister's reputation. I would never ever mention this to anybody. Nonsense, if people on the level of Gong Yuxian knew about this matter, the lie would definitely be exposed. Then you, go ahead. Feng Hanyue's petite hands that were clutching her snowy clothes trembled for a while before she finally closed her eyes and released her hold. In an instant, her snowy clothes fell to the ground and an eye-catching patch of whiteness gently emerged, like a pair of tender flower buds were about to bloom. They quivered upon her supple and snowy skin, causing Yunche's sight to spin and be dazzled. Feng Hanyu covered her mouth in shock. She had never expected Feng Hanyu to be so daring and actually. Yunche swallowed a mouthful of saliva forcefully. If it wasn't for his incredible psychological quality and physique, he reckoned his nose would have spouted blood already. He extended his right hand, and shook his wrist as if he were convulsing. Since this is the case, if senior sister insists, then I'll begin. Feng Hanyu shut her eyes firmly, as if her not being to see him meant he wouldn't be able to see her. Her lips were even more tightly pursed, not willing to utter a single word. Her appearance clearly signified, you can't talk to me. The smooth and fair skin before him was beautiful beyond compare. There was a pair of exquisite snow-white mountain peaks that were even more perfect to the extreme, like a pair of flawless bright moons perched upon the chest. Between them was an incomparably captivating snow-white ravine. Watching Feng Hanue's expression, Yunche began to think that his playfulness this time was a little over the top and excessive, but the absolute beauty of this landscape had already appeared in front of his eyes. His thoughts were completely attracted in an instant, and his eyes appreciated the scenery shiningly as his palm advanced forward, slowly grasping her right breast. Feng Hanyu emitted a moan akin to that of a small injured animal. Her eyes squeezed shut even more rigidly, and her eyelashes began trembling incomparably violently. Yunche didn't speak, because speaking now would truly spoil the beautiful scenery, and would possibly scare Feng Hanyu into shrinking away. His expression was serious and concentrated as his right hand began slowly massaging. Range and vigor also increased gradually until that pair of snowy fat was constantly being kneaded into various shapes. Later, his 5 fingers sunk in deeply, as if they had fallen into silky and delicate yogurt. The tactile sensation that spread, as well as the visual and spiritual impact, caused all the nerves in his body to go into a state of limpness. Minute sounds of moans spilled out of her tightly sealed lips unceasingly, and on that face of pure snow-like beauty, a pink color that was growing increasingly stronger came into view. Unwittingly, her tightly closed eyes opened quietly, the expression in her eyes showing panic, disconcertment, as well as an increasingly deeper sense of bewilderment. To Feng Hanyu, 3 minutes' time practically seemed like 3 long years' worth of time. Finally, following the throbbing that arose from her profound veins, the jade pool entrance opened completely. As all the profound entrances in her body opened, the profound energy within her body suddenly seemed to have arrived in a completely new world as they automatically circulated and revolved excitedly. She herself also felt a qualitative change in her profound veins due to the change in this one profound entrance. "Senior sister, it's all right now." Yunche kept track of the time meticulously. Only until the last second of the 3 minutes did he finally reluctantly move his evil hands away from the fairy's sacred forbidden area. Within his palms flowed the closely packed delicate fragrance of a young lady. Practically like a bolt of lightning, Feng Hanyu pulled the snow garment over her chest and turned around in an instant. In the blink of an eye, she had put on the garment in a flurry. She turned around, her face as red as the glow of sunset on the horizon. You must not speak of this matter, otherwise. I definitely won't let you get away with it. Yes, I definitely will not speak of this to anyone. Otherwise, let me be struck by lightning 5 times. Yunche could only promise again. Feng Hanyu stared fixedly at Yunche for quite a while. Her lips moved several times, yet was unable to say anything else, because for some reason, every time she looked into Yunche's eyes, her heart would begin to pulse violently. She had originally thought that after her body was profaned as such, she would feel very angry, sad, or even have a crying fit, but facing the chief offender, she only felt a little bit of that. On the contrary, what she felt was a strange, indescribable feeling. Her cheeks burned, heart pounded, and she felt thoroughly in shambles. She could only look away hurriedly and assume an appearance of anger. Only until her younger sister Feng Hanxue took off her clothes and sat in front of Yunche did she quietly turn around and watch the two of them silently. The snowy clothes hung down, revealing Feng Hanxue's tender and lovely body, which was as white as lamb fat. Her long and supple hair fell upon her snowy shoulder, contrasting against her body's jade-like skin, which was so tender and soft that no one could resist touching it. The two sisters' bodies were exactly the same. From the back, Yunche couldn't find any differences at all, and at the same time, their conditions that appeared were also exactly the same. My jade pool entrance is also the same as big sister's. Yunche said, face full of gloom. Previously, I was worried just about this problem. Because you two senior sisters are twins, your appearances are the same, and on your body, 99% of everything is also similar, including profound veins. Both senior sisters' profound strength cultivations should have been synchronous from the beginning, right? That is the reason. Then, sure enough, this is exactly what I was worrying about before. Senior sister Hanxue's jade pool entrance is exactly the same as senior sister Hanue's. Ah, how could this be? Feng Hanshue's mind suddenly went blank. Regarding Yunche's words, what she thought of first wasn't doubt, because she and her sister were truly too similar, especially their bodies. Therefore, the similarities in their profound veins, to their knowledge, appeared to be an ordinary matter. You? Big sis, what should I do? This time, it was Feng Hanshue's turn to be filled with a sense of helplessness. It's all right. The previously confused Feng Hanyu actually had a relaxed expression now. I was also really nervous before, but he only touched me for a short while, and I didn't feel too unwell. Afterwards, I possessed the heavenly god's spiritual veins. Now, I can clearly feel that the heavenly god's spiritual veins are very magical. I can feel that my cultivation speed in the future will increase several times. Shue can't throw away the heavenly god's spiritual veins just because of the last jade pool entrance, otherwise, it would be too much of a pity. Is it really all right? Feng Hanshue was extremely nervous, but with her sister as a precedent, her feelings of apprehension were naturally just a little lighter than that of Feng Hanyu previously. Believe me. Feng Hanyu, who had previously resisted desperately and had practically gathered all her willpower to make a decision, was now voluntarily pushing Feng Hanyu towards Yunche's fiendish paws. She turned Feng Hanshue's body around, then extended her arms suddenly, and pulled Feng Hanshue's snow garment off. All right, we can begin now. Ah. Following Feng Hanshue's startled shout, her ice sculpture-like, jade-cut upper body was completely revealed in front of Yunche's eyes. The two pink gem-like flower buds nervously, yet flirtatiously moved in the air. Then, they were tightly grasped within the palms of Yunche's evil hands. The frozen end divine hall was built from heavenly firm stone. Once the stone door was shut tightly, this place would become an exceptionally good refuge. Even a peak-level Emperor Profound Realm wouldn't be able to cause any damage to it. In fact, even an incomparably powerful Overlord wouldn't find it easy to destroy the door and enter. At the same time, the heavenly firm stone soundproofing quality was also exceptionally good. Otherwise, if anyone passed by this place at this time, they would definitely hear abnormal and strange moaning sounds from a young lady. After Yunche finally completed his wicked duties, several streaks of red traces were left upon the moons on Feng Hanshue's chest. Just like Feng Hanyu, she scrambled to put on her clothes. Then, her cheeks flushed red as she said practically the same words as Feng Hanyu. You must not speak of this matter to anyone, no one at all. Yes, I definitely won't speak of this matter to anyone. Otherwise, let me be struck by lightning 5 times. Yunche promised for the 3rd time. He placed his palm at the end of his nose, and lightly sniffed the traces of a young lady's sweet scent that was being secreted. His life here was truly unreasonably pleasant. Looks like after I return from the Divine Phoenix Empire, I'll definitely live here for a while. Amen, that's right. My only purpose is to cultivate the frozen end divine art some more. After making this promise, Yunche began gasping for air, and practically stood up straight from the ground while quivering. Watching his actions as he got up, Feng Hanyu called out lightly, Yunche, what's wrong? You appear really tired. As she spoke, both sisters suddenly discovered that Yunche's face was a pale white color. A streak of sweat also lined his forehead. Even the expression in his eyes was misty, as if he was really distracted. They also simultaneously thought of the night he had opened the profound entrances of Murong Qianxue and Zhun Lianxie. He had also appeared like this and was then immediately escorted by Xie Qingyu to rest. That's right, that day he had said that opening profound entrances consumed a lot of his mental energy. No problem. Yunche waved his hand, as he forced a smile out from his pale face. It's only that in these past couple of days, I've helped senior sisters open their profound entrances, so I was a bit too mentally exhausted. After a short rest, Before Yunche had even finished speaking, his body that had been about to stand up suddenly swayed, and immediately leaned toward Feng Hanyu. Ah! Following Feng Hanyue's cry of surprise, Yunche fell onto her body in an instant. His face just happened to land upon her soft chest, and a sweet scent immediately permeated his nose. Feng Hanyu used her body to prop Yunche up. She didn't push him away, rather, her heart was filled with feelings of gratefulness and remorse. It turns out that he became this tired just for us. He had done so much, yet we suspected that he was trying to bully us. It's obvious everything was for our best interest. He bestowed upon us the heavenly God's spiritual veins, yet we were screaming and yelling at him the whole time, and even threatened him not to speak of what happened today elsewhere. This truly was too inappropriate. Watching Yoon-chae's weak appearance, both sisters were so remorseful they wanted to cry. Although Yoon-chae was stiffly pressed against Fong Han-yue's chest, they didn't have the heart to move him away. Just like this, they let him take advantage of them once again, and even said worriedly, "Yoon-chae, are you all right? How about we take you to the snow congealing hall? The mind congealing dew in the snow congealing hall will definitely allow you to recover quickly. No need. I thank senior sisters for your concern. You can be at ease. My mind is only a little exhausted, not overdrafted. There won't be any damage. I'll be all right if you let me rest here quietly for a while." The Shuiyu sisters cautiously placed Yoon-chae onto the ground. Fong Han-yue said with a face full of worry, "Then you must rest carefully, we won't disturb you here anymore. Will you really be all right by yourself? Amen, don't worry. I am a man, this little matter isn't much. You two senior sisters just obtained the heavenly God's spiritual veins, and need some time to settle your profound energy. So, don't worry about me." Yoon-chae said with a slight smile. Then we'll be off now. Tomorrow, we'll come visit you. Also, the young lady nibbled on her cherry-like lip, and said shyly, "Today's matter, you really must not speak of it elsewhere." The two sisters, unaware they had been taken advantage of, left side by side. When they left, they were still worrying about Yoon-chae. After they left, the stone door shut automatically, and Yoon-chae leapt up from the ground like a carp. Then, he patted the non-existent dust on his bottom, and began smiling incomparably contentedly. "Sigh, this place is indeed a paradise for man. Everyone says the women in frozen Cloud Asgard are all aloof, remote, and unapproachable. But from another perspective, it is precisely because of this that they are instead very easy to capture." After whispering this contentedly, Yoon-chae raised his head, and continued comprehending the frozen and divine arts according to the writing that shone when using frozen cloud arts on the heavenly firm stone. Episode 59 is end here. Next episode coming tomorrow. Thanks for watching.